Hey guys, what is up? It's Rolly here coming to you today with something Rxd Show. If you want to ask questions for the next show, please just hashtag AskRxD and we'll try and get back to you with those questions. We've got a couple of questions here on Instagram. We're going to try and do our best effort to answer them. Question number one today comes from Steph, Health Tips. I'm trying to improve my thruster and get more weight on the bar. Any tips on increasing your thruster weight? So a thruster is always going to come down to two movements. Movement number one is going to be the front squat. Movement number two is going to be your push press. How big or strong is your front squat in relation to your thruster? If your front squat is too close to your thruster, then it's going to be really hard for you to improve your thruster unless you improve your front squat. And then look at how close is your push press in relation to your thruster. Now we find that for a lot of people the thruster really comes down to that push press and then being comfortable with pushing weight from their legs into that bar. A lot of people when they get into that position with a dip and driving up from the thruster, they break down from their back, go into their back takes a big load, or they just start pressing with their arms too soon and that stops them from really driving through with their legs into that bar. Really learning to use your legs is going to be a really big key in getting you stronger in some of these movements. So I hope that helps. Question number two comes from Maggie Pyran. My snatch and overhead squat are not as heavy as I wish they were and they're very unstable. How should I get more weight and be stable on snatches and overhead squats? Here's the thing with snatches and overhead squats. A couple of things. Instability can come from your shoulders having to overcompensate for your lower body being a little bit tight. So try and make sure that A, you feel comfortable in doing a full range of motion snatch. Sitting right at the bottom, making sure that you don't have to go too wide to get that bar into the right position. Thing number two, when you have to think about when it comes to overhead squats and snatches, is an overhead squat is not as much like a snatch as a snatch balance is like a snatch. So what I mean by that is when we do a full snatch and we're coming up and we're dropping down, what's happening is we're avoiding one portion of the movement, which is the lowering down of weight. Instead of lowering down the weight, we're just dropping into the bottom position of the weight. And there's going to be cases here where people can't overhead squat as much weight or don't feel comfortable overhead squatting as much weight as they feel comfortable snatching because of the fact that in an overhead squat there's an extra movement that you have to do that you don't always have to do in the snatch. In the snatch you kind of just drop straight into that bottom position. So that's something to think about. Something you can do to try and stabilize your shoulders is work on things like Turkish get-ups, work on making sure that you have stable shoulders with a whole lot of different movements. Turkish get-ups are really great, starting light, building them up. Overhead walks, anything that's forcing your shoulder to stabilize and it positions you directly above you is going to translate to your snatch feeling a little bit better. Alright guys, question number three for today comes from Gig Who Lifts. Drills to help me fix my bar path on the snatch. I tend to go straight up and don't get that pop contact of my thighs. Hashtag asked. We've done a tutorial on this on our YouTube channel on how to get more bar contact with the clean. Here's a concept. Contact between your body, your thigh, and that bar isn't coming because the bar is too close to your body as you're bringing it up. So if that bar is too close from your body, imagine my fists being here next to each other. If I try and make my fists hit each other from here, I'll never hit very hard. If I make my fists hit each other from here, there's a lot of contact. So the reason why people don't get contact between their body and the bar is the bar is starting too close to their body. There needs to be space for there to be contact and power between you, that bar, and your snatch. Hopefully that can fix you understanding and getting that bit of contact. I'll probably do a video on this actually a little bit later because it's probably something that a lot of people have problems and questions on. Question number four comes from @healthy_journey_mama5. Stability in overhead squat. Again, I think this is something that's becoming a pretty recurring question. With the overhead squat, what you're looking to do is figure out where the problem is coming from. Is it coming from your lower? Are your shoulders unstable because your lower body feels really tight as you're going down into that overhead squat? So for a lot of people, if they're lacking ankle range of motion or hip range of motion, then they might find it hard to drop down. Or B, are you feeling unstable because you don't have the right mobility? So as you come down, that bar is going forward as you're coming down, and that's something to think about. If the bar is coming forward, you'd have to work on your mobility to try and get that bar in the right position. It's probably a lot of the time not that much to be done with stabilization exercises, although they do have their place. But a lot of what you have to think about is, am I mobile enough to do the movement that I want to do? Once mobility has been addressed, then you can do stabilization exercises. Anything that you're having to hold above your head would be classified as a stabilization exercise. You can get fancy with it and do a lot of the west side barbell stuff with chains and bands, but that would be something to think about. All right, and question number 5 comes from Daniel.Pate. We're looking to start our own box. Advice on location, financing, bank loan, credit cards, etc. Buying equipment. What's the number 1 mistake in failed boxes that have to go out of business? Alright, this is a 3-part question, so where do we start with this? Advice on location. If I were to do it again, so I own a box called Crossway Down Under. We're located in Holland Hill in South Australia. If I was to do this again, I would think about location more. I would try and be somewhere that's visible. Back in the day, CrossFit wasn't something a lot of people knew about, so it didn't matter being in front of people, but now it's at the stage where it's something that people recognize, and you have the chance of people just wanting to join because they happen to go down the street and they see the CrossFit gym, they're like, you know what, I saw it, I'll go there, right? So that would be one reason. So I try to be somewhere a bit more commercial, somewhere where people can see it. Do you need to be somewhere commercial? No, you don't. Is it a lot more expensive to be somewhere commercial? It is. So it all comes down to what sort of budgeting are you starting. I know people who started gyms with $1 million. I know myself who started with nothing. So it just comes down to where are you beginning from. Everybody's going to start from different points of view. If you're starting with millions, do it the best way you can. If you're not starting with millions, do it in a way that you can. All right? I personally started from my garage. I grew to about 50 members from inside of my garage, and I didn't see it as an issue. And I didn't actually even move to a commercial facility because I needed to, or I did need to. I didn't plan to move to a commercial facility at the time that I moved at. I moved because council kicked me out of my house. Question number 2, the second question of that was financing, bank loan, credit cards, etc. Look, I would always suggest to do it organically, unless you have a good business background. If you have a good business background and you know what you're doing with money, and you know how to play around with it and not spend it on stupid things, then you know, if you can get some sort of investor, I don't think I wouldn't highly suggest it, but if you can be smart about it, you know, it could turn out well. I will try and get someone on the podcast a little bit later who's done across the gym with investors, and we'll try and get their feedback on it. But if I did it the way, I would always do it the same way that I did. I'd start small. I'd start with a little bit of equipment. I started with 1 kettlebell, a barbell, and a skipping rope, and like homemade wall balls. And you know, if you believe in what you're doing, you're going to carry that onto your members and onto your clients. If you don't believe in what you're doing, then you're not going to carry that on. So that would be something to think about. And so I would maybe just, you know, use your credit cards if you need to buy equipment, but I wouldn't get a loan or anything too big. And the number 1 mistake in failed boxes that have to go out of business is not treating it like a business. You know, making sure that you treat what you're doing and what you want out of the box as a business and as professional as you can from day one. We've made every single mistake under the sun, or I personally have. I treat it like a hobby. You know, like, trust me, like, I really was not the world's most professional businessman at one stage, but we learn from that. You know, we make mistakes, we learn from that, and I can pass that on to you, and I can tell you, if you want to succeed from day one, treat it like a proper business. You know, I had a little bit of a background in business before starting one, and I wasn't quite able to apply it because a lot of the concepts that I learned hadn't quite made sense. I would try and read up about accounting, I'd try and read up about business systems, and I'd just try and get a mentor, really, somebody that can help you understand and help you succeed. The best thing you probably do is find somebody who has a successful box and figure out what have you done to succeed, and try and copy and avoid all their mistakes and do all the things that they've done that has allowed them to succeed. So that would be it. Alright guys, thank you very much for joining us today in the show. Let's keep it up. Let's do episode number 2. So if you have questions and you enjoyed the answers, make sure to tell people about the show. Hashtag Ask Rxd Show. It's Roll if you've never met me or seen me face to face, if you only listen to the podcast. And if you have never checked out a podcast, make sure to check them out. Something Rxd on iTunes and Stitcher. As always, take care and peace.